Hi, and welcome back to the online study of preparing for PPA certification. We're now on the final section of digital post-production, Section E. Section E says, manipulate digital images. Now there's 4 items on the exam from this section. Number 1 says, knowledge of available techniques to manipulate digital images, including exposure, color correction and balance, adjusting levels, details, dodge and burn, etc. Now, we're also going to add part 2 to the mix in this particular study, and you'll see why here in just a moment. Number 2 says, knowledge of cause and effect in the manipulation of digital images. So as we're talking about various ways to manipulate images, we're also going to talk about their cause and effect. Let's get started. Now, because the CPP exam does not use any brand specific questions. In other words, there's no questions about Canon cameras or Nikon cameras, nor will there be any questions specifically about Photoshop or Lightroom or any other editing software for that matter. What you're really going to need to know is just some of the generic ideas behind how editing softwares work, and again, the cause and effect of some of the manipulation tools that you might use. Almost every digital image will benefit from some additional technique to enhance or improve the final image. Some of these techniques apply changes to the pixels in the image file, but do not rearrange the pixels themselves. Here are a few common techniques for image manipulation that do not rearrange the pixels. Exposure adjustments are made to an image to control the overall lightness or darkness of an image. Now this is generally a universal control where the entire image gets darker or lighter. We're not talking about selective areas within the image. Exposure controls adjust the entire image. Unlike exposure adjustments, which make adjustments to the lightness or darkness throughout the entire image, level adjustments allow for individual control over highlights, shadows, and midtones. The next is color balance. Color corrections using color balance allow for adjustments to individual RGB channels, making selected adjustments to the complementary colors of RGB, which are cyan, magenta, and yellow. We're going to kind of have to go back to our composition and design section where we learn some of these things, but remember, if you've got an image that's too blue, you add yellow. If you've got an image that's too green, you add magenta. Contrast adjustments are used to expand or contract the range of tones in the shadows, midtones, and highlights. I like to think of contrast as making the darks darker and the lights lighter. I use this all the time in adjusting my images to give my images what I call pop or snap. Here's something you may not know. If you make adjustments to exposure, levels, color adjustments, or contrast, and you access these tools through the menu in Photoshop, those adjustments become part of the steps in history and cannot be undone or adjusted without undoing all of the editing that you have done following that adjustment. However, if you create these adjustments on an adjustment layer, these adjustments remain on their own layer throughout the editing process and can be readjusted at any point during your editing time on that image. We'll talk more about layers in just a moment, but this illustrates one of the powerful reasons why you want to be doing your editing in layers. Dodge and burn. The dodge tool will lighten specific areas, where the burn tool will darken specific areas. Both techniques are frequently used to reduce distractions within the image or to provide additional emphasis on the subject. Because these next tools move or replace pixels within the image, it sometimes gets the nickname destructive editing, even though that's a little bit dramatic. The first tool is the clone tool. This tool allows for exact duplication of selected pixels from one portion of the image to another portion in the image. The healing brush is similar to the behavior of the clone tool. However, this brush will actually blend the values of the pixels from the source with the pixels to the destination. Using layers. We spoke a few moments ago about using adjustment layers to be able to go back in and access the control over those adjustments anytime through the editing process. But you could also do your editing on layers for much more control and precision when it comes to editing your images. Creating adjustment layers and doing your image editing on individual layers allows you for much more control and precision over your editing process. Reducing the opacity of an adjustment layer or an edited layer will allow for a more subtle enhancement because you can blend values from the original layer with other edited layers. A layer mask will further enhance your editing capabilities by allowing you to conceal or reveal editing that you have done on other layers. Well, that does it for Section E and brings us to the end of digital post-production. Now on to the final section of the test specifications, image capture and output.